Buddy.
Hey, hey.
Oh, you're spoiling me. You even told me that you were going to bring some from Colorado. Which,
yep.
congratulations on making it back safe and sound.
Thanks. I did that trip in 2 days.
How long was the trip? Well, 2 days, obviously.
2 days, yeah.
How many hours?
First run was maybe about 14 hours. Second one was maybe about 12, 13.
That's it?
Yeah, with gas stops and stuff. That's almost 2,000 miles.
That's honestly not as bad as I thought. It's going to take me, I'm driving down to Florida pretty soon, and it's going to take me 12, but I'd stop all the time.
Yeah.
Do you?
Gas, restroom breaks.
Did you do any like photography or any random stuff to treat yourself?
I had a couple, like I think I hit like one spot. The rest of it was mostly like drive-by
No,
shooting.
I understand. Let me ask you this. Did you go the same way that you went out?
Roughly, yes.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
So you had already kind of seen the terrain.
Yeah, well, and the weather wasn't that great when I left, so it's like very cloudy and rainy when I left. And so when I was going through, like, it was pretty much clouds from, like, Junction all the way to, like, the end of, like, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
So, like, it was just, like, overcast, and I was just like, yeah, it's not really good weather to go, like, exploring or do anything like that, because I did want to go see some stuff, and, like, the one place I wanted to hit was, like, well, I wanted to hit either at sunrise or sunset or something like that.
Where were you trying to hit?
Red Rocks Amphitheater.
Oh.
Yeah, so I hit that on the way to Colorado, but it was pretty much snowed out, closed, and they were also doing some construction on the stage.
Okay.
So like you really couldn't go like down into the amphitheater or anything like that. And then so I was like, well, I'll try to hit it like when it's closer to spring or something like that, and try to get like there's probably some good angles where you can get a good like sunrise shot out of it, but then you have to stay overnight in like Denver. So I was like, considering that I was leaving at like just before noon, like I think I left at like 10:30. It's like by the time I would have gotten out there, it would have been like, okay, well, I have to waste all this time and then wait for the next day.
Yeah.
And the weather was crap. So I was just like, go. And then, of course, Waze decided to take me down some weird like roads and stuff like that because it thinks it's faster.
It thought it would be more efficient than you.
Yeah. And then so like I ended up skipping a bunch of rest stops. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just wait till the next rest stop, and then some like 2 hours more down the road, I finally hit a rest stop, and I'm like, well, I've done like half the trip, so I'm pretty sure if I wanted to do this trip in 2 days, I could. And then the next day, I was like, I might as well just do the trip in 2 days.
All right, well, hey, let's talk about this beer, and I'm gonna get you to talk about your trip more.
Okay, well.
So, what have we got going on here? What did you bring us? And
this is for now.
Okay.
And this is for you.
Oh my goodness.
So this is a little variety pack of different beers and stuff. And of course, as they all say, available only in Colorado.
You know, Colorado, I love how they put their state logo, it seems like. I really like that.
Yeah.
Like, I would honestly buy that, even though I'm not from Colorado or have ever lived there. But
so this one I haven't had yet, so I can't really tell you much about it. I like the graham cracker. The IPA is really good.
Oh my goodness, you really hooked it up.
Yep, that one's pretty good. Pretzel Assassin, I think I had that one. That's also really good.
Like, does it literally taste like a pretzel?
These are pretty much close to different ones. That's kind of a sour.
Okay.
And so these are all kind of made in Denver. So it's Denver
butter.
Denver Brewing Company. So that's kind of like your own little variety 6-pack. So you get to try some cool ones. This is for here.
Okay.
So this I got basically 2 of each. So we got
hit me with it.
High Country, which we will start with this because this one I have not had yet.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know what this is. This is
Are the
Mountain Lager.
Are the folks that you're out there with, are they beer drinkers? I know that you're hanging with the family, but do they drink beer, or they would?
Maybe? Well, their kids do. Parents not as much.
Oh, cool.
At least I don't think, you know.
Sure.
But then you got this. This is actually local. These are local to Grand Junction.
Dirty Hippie.
Yeah, we got Dirty Hippie and then Soul Shaken.
Wow.
So this is a red ale, Imperial Red Ale, and I think this is a wheat ale. I couldn't find their IPA because they don't have in the variety pack. It was just probably like a straight 6-pack. But if we don't get to these, then you'll have those too. But all these I've had except for
here,
one.
let's crack it open, man. What's gonna be funny is one day, hopefully, I'll make it out there and we'll go to this brewery together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good.
Wow, 3.7. Man, this would be like literally what you would go like drink for football all day long.
Mm-hmm.
You get hammered. Well, not hammered, but you could just handle yourself all day.
Yeah, so it's a good light start. But...
Well, I want to talk about beer, but I also want to talk about gear. And specifically, I didn't realize this, but you're working on electric bikes out in Colorado.
Yep.
Now, when you were here, did you ever work on electric bikes? No.
Kind of. So the two companies that we had bikes from did have electric bike lines.
What were they?
It's the Giant and Specialized. Giant had their different varieties. So Giant's also, they got their other company, Momentum, and it's a bunch of like city kind of hybrid electric bikes. And they've also started coming out with some of their mountain bike electric bikes. So their Trance, which is like one of their more popular mountain bikes, they had an electric bike version of that.
Okay.
So a little bit, but we never really dived too much into like a lot of the electric bike like technical aspects. We just mostly sold them, and then we would work on them like we would just about any other bike.
Okay.
And we were kind of learning how to do like all the little firmware stuff, but we never really
There's
messed a whole
firmware?
lot. Yeah, they have firmware stuff. Apparently, for the bikes we work with, like the 3rd gen Bosches, like Bosch motors, apparently if you did not update the firmware, the motor would blow up.
Oh,
so
well,
it would just like burn out. Yeah. So
go buy an e-bike.
Yeah. So I mean, but they're getting better to the point they were like, okay, well, we need to get this firmware out. So it's like it's just it's responsibility obviously of the people selling the bikes to let people know like, hey, make sure you bring it in so we can update the firmware of your motors and your batteries and things like that.
I was gonna also say, if you're probably spending that kind of cash, you're up to date.
Yeah.
You're not willy nilly just going with the flow.
Yeah, no. These like the customer base we have out there, like people that are like they're coming in because they specifically want an electric bike now. It's not like we like my last shop. It was like a lot of people came in that were sometimes thinking about getting a bike or something like that. Like a lot of people that we have that come in end up usually getting a bike just because like they're coming to the shop with at that point with how much money they're spending.
Yeah.
Most cases they're like that is what they want. They just don't know exactly which bike they want yet, and that's where kind of we come in.
Would you say your new client base or the people that you're working with, they come in ready to spend money?
Pretty much.
That's
yeah.
That's the best. That's the best.
And it helps. I mean, it brings in good business, and it helps, obviously keep the business running, which is good. So it's like, it's not a lot of people that are just like unsure. And we're like pretty much, I won't say we're the only electric bike shop in town, but I think we're probably the more well-known at this point.
So what's your position there?
Mechanic.
You are a mechanic.
Yeah,
okay.
so I pretty much I build the bikes and I fix the bikes is pretty much what I do.
So my dad, his mechanics have to get sent off pretty much yearly to get training on some of the motorcycles they work on. Is that similar with e-bikes and stuff now that they're getting more techy, I guess?
I mean, we had, was it like a Bosch certification thing I had to do before I came
certified.
out here? Yeah, so it's basically, it was just like a webinar, kind of like they sat there and explained like the different things, like the sales side of things for a little while, and like, oh, this is the different motors and what they can do, and et cetera, et cetera. And then there was the technical side, which was, this is how you take it apart, this is how you replace it, this is how you lube the motors and stuff like that. So yeah, like they do still have it. It's not as intense because like with bikes and stuff, it's not very it's not like required like cars.
Okay.
With cars, you have to deal with like DOT, Department of Transportation, and all that stuff like that. And bikes, since you technically don't need a license, they don't really fall into any category, which is why like, whereas cars have very strict safety standards, with bikes and especially e-bikes, you have a lot of crappy ones too that end up, you pretty much look at people like, why are you spending your money on that? Do you want to die?
I mean, you were telling me earlier, how fast were you going on one of these things? A tricycle, right?
It was
an
tricycle,
electric
yeah. And we got up to like, it was one we built for a guy. It was before we dialed down the motor thing, but I got up to like 35 miles an hour.
Dude, anything over 10 miles an hour, you hit something, it hurts. Mm-hmm. I mean, even you just fall off a bike, standing still, it hurts.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, at that point, it was like, it was very small wheels, so it was a little twitchy, but it's like, I had pretty good control. Like, I wasn't like freaking out. If you freak out, that's when you mess up.
Do mountain bikers and e-bikers Do they have? Is there like a feud between them? Like, or do they ride together? I guess is the question.
Yes and no. So like, it depends on the trail. Like, there are more and more trails opening up to like electric mountain bikes.
Gotcha.
But there's not as much yet because they worry a lot more about like them destroying the trails and stuff like that. They tend to be a little bit more grounded. They're heavier. Right? Yeah. So like, there's still kind of a lot of, a lot of learning and stuff, like figuring out, but there's more and more trails that are opening up to electric bikes.
Sure.
And, the idea is that they do kind of make things a little bit more fun because they help you get up the hills.
Yeah.
So if you want to climb up and then ride down, then, it's a little bit easier getting on the up part.
That is true. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Do you think that's why that the bikes are taking off? Is that like someone that's maybe not a pro and is fit can just hop on it?
And so like, I mean, we've had people like who either has like, that was pretty much the original market, is people who have a little bit more like either an aversion to like the amount of work that regular bikes take. Oh yeah. But yeah, trust me, I know, I'm a mountain biker. I know how hard it is. Yeah. Like I do,
you
like
see the e-bike go up the mountain, you're like, damn it.
Oh yeah. Like, what was it? Me, Justin, and Jason. Jason's our head mechanic, and then Justin's pretty much one of the sons of the family, and like he does more like the sales side of stuff.
Okay.
He had his electric bike, and then Jason just had his regular like full rigid, like just a full rigid bike, no dropper post, nothing. And then I had my bike, my Yeti. And of course, I'm sitting there struggling, getting through stuff. And then Jason himself, he's just a machine. He just goes, like, he's got like the physical prowess and everything, to just plow through everything. And then here's Justin on his e-bike, and he goes, you know what? People like to say that having an e-bike is cheating, and I just like to say they're right.
What kind of noise does it even make? Just like a...
It depends. Some of them you can hear them, like it's kind of like sometimes a little bit of buzzing noise like you typically hear from motors.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just completely quiet.
Is it belt driven?
No, some of them are standard. So you have, just like your regular bikes, you have your like just regular chain driven systems, like is what he has, like just a standard mountain bike drivetrain on there.
Gotcha.
Some of them, like the hybrids and stuff we have hub, what is it they call it, internal gears like inside the hub, like the Nexus hubs, so like all the gears are on the inside and just has a single chain. Haven't really dealt with any belt driven systems yet, but I have seen belt driven systems when I was at A1 Cycling.
Okay.
So like they do exist.
Gotcha.
They're a little bit different to work with.
Sure.
But most cases they typically just use chains.
Do e-bikes have USB ports on them? I know that's silly, but do they actually like,
some do,
we're going to charge your GoPro or something?
Yeah,
mount it,
yeah.
like
There's actually, so on a lot of the bikes I've seen, the little computer you have up front actually has like a USB port. So if you had your phone hooked up to it, you could actually charge your phone off of it.
That's probably where you do your firmware updates and stuff too, right? Or is that actually internally inside of it?
I think you can do that, or you can do it like through like the actual bike, like through the battery or something like that. Like I think there's other ports you can use to update it.
Are there best okay, so just like a car, you need to change your oil. Like this is the one thing I went wrong with electric skateboards, is everyone was like, you got to treat it like a vehicle, because like if you don't, so what are best practices for like an e-bike? And is it called an e-bike?
Yeah, an electric bike, e-bike, that's pretty much what they're called. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I mean, the best practices are just the same with any other bike. Just like, with a motorcycle, like the chain stretches. The chain will stretch over time because the amount of torque and stuff like that, and especially more so with e-bikes, because you have a lot more torque.
Yeah.
So like, and what a lot of people like to do is, instead of properly going through the gears like you would on a regular bike, which actually will save you on battery and it'll save you on wear and tear, as they'll usually go towards like the hardest gear, and they'll put a lot of power into it, and just like with a regular bike, that'll stretch the chain faster. And what that does, it's not bad to stretch the chain because it's going to happen. What happens is when you let it go too far. So you think like if you let your timing belt or something go too far on the car, then your engine's going to eventually stop working, or it's going to start wearing on other parts. If the chain starts stretching out too far, it wears on the cassette, it wears on the chain rings, and then you start experiencing issues shifting. One of the common things, which anyone that's ridden a bike might have noticed, is when the chain jumps. Like it feels like it's trying to jump up and down a gear, but what's actually happened is every time you push that pedal, the cassette's worn so much that it creates ramps. And so it basically jumps over the teeth. And so like anytime you put pressure down or anything like that, it's like, no, it's not going to work. And then when you put a new chain on it too, like it basically won't marry to the cassette, because now like it's offsets where the teeth are a little bit wider than what the chain can accommodate, so it doesn't fully sit into the teeth. So if you don't keep up with your chain, then you're usually going to end up buying a whole new drivetrain. And then with e-bikes, the other thing too is brakes. Is if you're going fast a lot, you're going to have to modulate your speed more. So with brake pads,
I was gonna say, you
you're going to probably
pads.
You could wear through them a lot faster, especially if you ride your brakes a lot.
Yeah.
If you're riding through places where like, you know, mountain bikes and stuff like that, like mountain bikes, you're typically going to go through brake pads, especially your rear brake pads, like a lot. Street and stuff like that, not as much, because usually you're staying at a more constant speed. You don't have to stop or slow down as often. But like if you're in a place where you're stopping frequently or you're having to brake frequently, like you can burn through those brake pads, you know, a lot quicker than you would a regular bike. Yeah. Especially since there's going to be a lot more friction, you know. And then, yeah, it's just, so keeping up with brake pads too.
What about batteries? Because like that thing, it's like I didn't use it for like 6 months, and then I swear the batteries just decided they're never going to recharge. Now that could be because it's made in China and it's a piece of junk.
Probably a quality thing. Yeah, like a lot of times, like people like, you know, like we tell people like you can pretty much leave your batteries just sitting like for the entire like year. Just make sure it's disconnected or something like that.
Interesting.
And then after about like, you know, or not like after a season, like winter season or something like that, you can pretty much let it sit for months and months and then put it on, and then it'd be like completely fine. Batteries, you know, with the way they charge and discharge now, obviously you have a lot like smart controllers and things like that, to where you can pretty much leave them plugged in and they will stop charging when, you know, they hit like their full charge or something like that. Some of them are even more advanced, where like, you know, with phones, right, where it's like, to save your battery's health, we're not going to charge until this next time. Like my phone does a lot now. So it'll like sit there, it'll charge a little bit, and then it'll stop charging, and then it'll wait a little while, and then start charging again, and that's to optimize the battery health. Okay. But I mean, even with my phone, I've had it for 8 years, and I probably haven't done the best.
Your
with charging.
Phone?
Yeah, my phone. Like,
you've had your phone for 8 years?
Maybe not 8 years. What is that? iPhone 8. We're getting close to 13, which I might get.
Holy cow!
Yeah, I got the 8. So 4 years. Sorry, 4 or 5 years, not 8 years. Sorry, I'm thinking it's the iPhone 8, yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have the 8 too. So we're in the same boat. Yeah. Whatever. I mean, they all do the same damn things nowadays. I swear, it's just they want you to pay more money for something you don't need.
The only reason would upgrade at this point is the camera, because like I've been getting a little bit more into mobile photography, so I've been like really trying to get more into like when I go out running and stuff like that. Like I don't want to carry my camera with me all the time.
No, I don't blame you.
You know, so like even though I wish there was a way to have it with me because I could take some awesome shots, but it's like, you know, I could definitely go for that wider lens for some of the shots I've tried to take. So I'm probably looking to get the 13 when it comes out. Either the 13 or the 14. We'll see kind of where I'm at. Yeah. Like my phone's doing mostly fine. It's starting to have its weird little things happening, you know, as it gets older, but you know, just wear and tear. But
have you been filming much while you're out in Colorado? Or not filming, but taking photos and stuff like that?
Photos, yes.
Not much filming.
Filming, yes.
What have you been filming?
So I pretty much documented my entire trip going out.
Yes, I was hoping you would do that.
Yeah.
Even if you don't release it for like 9 years, at least you got it. You got it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like I pretty much documented the entire trip kind of going out, and then I've documented some like little exploration adventures and stuff like that, both on my phone, on my camera, with my GoPro. So like you'll probably see like in some of my shots from like on my Instagram, like you'll see like my GoPro like on my chest or on my head or something like that. So I have been filming. I've amassed about 2 terabytes almost of footage that I haven't really touched yet.
And that's on your Canons, which that means that's a lot of footage.
Canon, right? GoPro, and not as much phone on there. There's probably more than 2 terabytes if you include my phone. Wow. I just haven't transferred that footage yet, so it's just sitting on my phone. So the hard part is like, as much as I want to, it's like, one, like I just don't have like,
it's a time suck.
It's a time suck, especially like for the same problem I had with my photos, and why I haven't gotten as much photos edited is I was trying to do everything. Like I was like, you know what, I could probably do this on my old Surface Pro 4, which is a dual core i5. And needless to say, like even with all the little optimizations I've done on it, it sucks. It sucks. So it's like, I mean, I kind of got pressed on and got through some of the photos that I was on, especially ones people were waiting on. But it's like, I was like, man, I wish I could just do this on my phone. It'd be so much easier. I wouldn't have to worry as much about the battery, like just draining out as fast. And the issue is like, you know how Lightroom, you know, Classic work, it's like you can only sync one catalog at a time.
Oh.
So like, because I had a catalog on my computer here at home, that was the one I still had synced up because I still had photos on there that I was going through. Then I had to make the second catalog on an external hard drive that I was like, I could only edit that on my computer and not sync it with my phone, which I've now got a better system kind of set up now. Yeah. So I upgraded the my package. So I had like the $10 like a photography plan, which gave me Lightroom, Photoshop, all like the mobile apps and stuff like that. But it had like only 20 gigabytes of storage. So I upgraded to the $20 a month one, which gives me a terabyte of storage.
Okay.
So now basically what I did is I transferred my catalog onto the Adobe Cloud. So like the little cloud service there. So now I can access that catalog, even if it's not the full res photos, I can at least get the smaller smart previews that I can still share or like edit and do whatever with. And then that way, if I'm on the go, I can still get to those from a laptop if I want to run Lightroom Classic on a different laptop, because I'm not a huge fan.
Wuggy.
The Lightroom app, on top of that, now because I have that set up, I have that terabyte storage, I can now, instead of having to back everything up to external hard drive, I can load everything up to the cloud. So instead, I just plug it into my phone, put in the SD card, upload all the photos to the cloud, and then next time I get on my computer, they download from the cloud to my computer, and then I can transfer them and put them back in with the rest of the files how it's normally organized.
Bro, you have done so much time figuring this out.
Dude, like when you go through all the little problems and stuff and you start researching, it's like, how can I make this work better and to be less of a pain in the ass? Because that's really all it is how do you make it less of a pain in the ass? And of course, with photos, like it'd be like, you move a slider and then you have to wait for the computer to think just to like affect like the exposure or something like that.
Is that the only computer you took out there with you?
Yes. Because that's the only one I really had besides my PC, my desktop. Which I had nowhere to take that or put it at the time, so I didn't bring it with me.
But it's going back out with you,
It's
correct?
going with me, yeah. So I got back, I merged my catalogs, I moved all my old photos out, resynced everything, so that way I could get to access to everything on my phone, and I could do all my editing, because editing on the phone, like, don't get me wrong, I like editing in Lightroom Classic a lot more, especially with some of the more advanced features it has.
Sure.
But for most of my editing that I've done, like, everything I can do on my phone. And if you think about it, that's probably the best place to do it, because it's going to more closely match what other people are going to see.
Yeah. No.
So,
and yeah, it's especially if it's really not going to be something that you're getting paid for and you're just doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also like building that whole like portfolio thing and getting stuff built up. Totally. But yeah, so like been going through that, and then of course obviously with how slow it like computer was with photo editing, it's like every time I sit there and try to figure out video, it's like, one, you got this, I'm going from like this nice like dual monitor, one's an ultra wide, and then I got basically a TV that acts as my second monitor, but it's still a second monitor,
of course, you know, nice, to
this little itty bitty Surface Pro screen.
Like,
and it's just like, this is I can't do this.
Maybe it's probably a good little break.
Yeah,
just take the photos, capture the footage, and then like while you've been out there, also you converted your truck. I see, which I thought was actually pretty cool. I showed my wife. Last time I saw it, you had basically created the bed frame, right, for the back of the truck, and then you had also created what looked like almost like little shelves that came drawers that came out. What's the next edition, or what are you planning on doing?
So that was really more of I did that literally the weekend before I drove out.
Okay.
So like that was more of okay, this is something I really have to get done.
Wait, you did that before you left?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you did it while you were out in Colorado.
Well, I was out in Colorado.
Okay.
But it was like literally before I left for here. Yeah. So that I did that pretty much the Friday and Saturday before I hit the road. Okay. So I hit the road Monday.
Yeah.
So Sunday was all, once I had everything built up, Sunday was all like getting everything packed up and then ready to go to figure out what I wanted to bring with me.
Sure.
And then get all that stuff sorted out. So yeah, it was interesting. I definitely already have learned a few things from it, because kind of going along with a lot of the philosophy and stuff I've been building is just, spend less time thinking, more
Just
time
do,
doing.
yeah.
And so like, and trust me, I know we've had plenty of conversations
yeah.
about that over the years.
Well, because you do things extremely well, but I think sometimes you might be your own worst enemy, and if you went ahead and just did it, it'd probably almost be done as well as you wanted anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I spent a lot of time over history, and not just with just things I wanted to do, but just in things in general, like overthinking and whatnot. And it's just like over the last 6 months, it's like experiences that have kind of pushed me more and more towards like, and of course like personal development's become really a big kind of like aspect in my whole life and everything I'm doing, trying to like develop more positive and action focused like mindsets and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what that was. It was just like, well, it's got to get done, so let's go get 2 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood, or it was like 15/16 because they technically don't have, or 15/32 because they technically don't have 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
And then I built it, and it's like, you know what, in the future I'm probably going to do a mix of like 1/2 inch and 3/4 and then maybe 1/4 inch, you know. So with 1/2 inch, like especially if you're trying to use screws, you don't have a lot of room for error because it's so thin.
Go right through it.
Yeah, well, you could go one side or the other, which luckily most cases, if not all cases, I kind of went right in, but it's still kind of like stripped out. It doesn't have as much bite, like the screw's holding in, but it's like you hit a point where instead of it like torquing down, it starts to spin.
Yeah.
So I would probably do like nails and glue for anything like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, unless I'm also using 3/4, and basically I would use 3/4 for like the outer frame and maybe the center piece on the box.
Yeah.
And then I would put 1/2 inch on top, 1/2 inch as part of the platform, and then the platform would be held up by the pegs that I pretty much set up.
Is it able to be broken down overnight, or is it pretty permanent for the most part? Like it doesn't.
No, like
fold
I set it up to where like it. I forgot to buy the hinges. Like I put the hinges on the cart, but I think at some point it fell off, and so when we got to the register, we just didn't have it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna make this work. And of course, once I was setting it up to where like I could basically, whether it's for like, having one seat up for just storage or something like that. If I needed a passenger or something, I could, instead of having a full platform fold down, I would have a large piece and a small piece. Yeah. So that way, if one seat went down, not the other, you could still extend it out. Yeah. Either like if you're putting boards or something down, instead of having like uneven surface, you could stack it on top of that and use it like kind of like a bed. But yeah, so like I cut one side down a little bit too short, unfortunately. So I ended up having to take another piece and then screwed it on top of both and just made a single platform, which so far it's working. Like it hasn't broken in half yet. Yeah. But that's also probably because like I had like the wood pegs that I had set up to hold everything up. But the idea is like eventually like I'll probably redo that. I'll have it double hinged in 2 spots to where I can fold it back onto the box. Okay. And then all I have to do is unscrew the pegs. Yeah. Put them in one of the drawers, and then it's just a flat top you can pretty much store whatever on. And I might get like a cargo net or something. So right now this is like version 1.0, rough learning lesson, and I'm probably just going to build off of that for a little bit because I can start to figure out like what works, what doesn't.
Where's the most exotic place you stayed in your vehicle now that you get to sleep in it? I meant because you got your 4Runner, so you're able to basically sleep somewhere, and then in the morning you could just put that glass window down, and that's it.
Well, I'll say this: before the platform, I crashed. I slept on top of. It's still technically a parking lot, but it was an interesting drive to get up there. But it was Reddish Knob, so it's a popular mountain biking spot, but it's also like it's right up there where you can pretty much see West Virginia and you can see like Virginia, and it's just all mountain range and stuff around you. It's the second tallest peak in Virginia. The first tallest peak, I forget what it's called, but it's like once you're up there, you can't see anything because it's all obscured by trees. Oh. So this place, it's like you could literally see everything. Got to wake up to like a sunrise and everything like that, which was really cool. But that was before the platform, but I still had the mattress and was able to set up the bed in the back of it. But since I built the platform, some random rest stop on 70, I guess.
So how big is your bed? Is it like a double or a twin?
A little bit bigger than like a full.
Okay.
So it's kind of designed. It's the X-Bed Mega Mat Duo, which is like a $300 air mattress. So it's pretty tough and durable. It's like meant to be able to be like taken like outside and put on the ground and stuff like that. It fits perfectly between the wheel wells. Like it's exactly like 41 inches wide. Yeah. So when I got it, like there was no
nice
like weird folding or anything like that. It's a little bit too long, but now with the platform, I can push it that extra few inches over the seats.
Okay.
So like the seats, like the bottoms fold up and then the backs fold down like that.
Oh, okay.
So like when it's like that, like originally the bed hits this, but now it goes over top of it. So it gives me that extra like 3 inches to where like I get pretty much full use of the full mattress.
That's pretty awesome. Dude.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good setup. You know, the idea is I got a buddy out there who I got to help set up his Jeep in kind of a similar way. He's got like a Jeep.
He's gonna pay you to do it?
Huh?
He gonna pay you to do it?
Maybe in beer.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like one of those, like, we're trying to get it set up so we can go out and do some, like, fun shit. So we're trying to go, like, I think a Moab adventure is kind of like what's on the radar right now. Drive out to Moab, spend a weekend out there. You got Arches and Canyonland. So finally maybe get around to checking those plays out, because I've been to Utah a couple times, either, like, little off-road spot or like, not that, was it Rabbit Valley, that one little ride I did with my buddy when he was like, you know, cheating with the e-bike.
Oh yeah.
So that actually went into Utah, and like I got some cool like little mobile photos of that, and that was a really cool shot, because that was like all cliff sides that you were riding around. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's like every time you like took a turn or something like that, it was a lot of fun riding for one.
Yeah.
But it's like everywhere you're just kind of like, it's like, I'm distracted by everything. Hopefully I don't fall.
Yeah. How, this is all completely off topic, but now living in a state where obviously I don't think there's any penalty for marijuana here in Virginia, but in Colorado it's a little bit different. Does your place where you live smell like weed, or weed's legal and people just, they do what they
Everyone
want?
Just does what they want to do.
I feel like so many people in Colorado are so outdoorsy, like, yeah, weed's available, but like maybe they do it, but it's like, nah. Like, we have it at our disposal, but whatever.
Yeah, I think I haven't really dealt much.
I mean, I smell it all the time when I go into DC now. It's like, good grief, man.
Surprisingly, I can't remember if I've smelled it. I know people, I think, that have done it. I mean,
sure. I mean, you're in Colorado. We're
personally,
adults.
I think I've met more people out this way that do it than I have out there yet.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people that, you know, do it, and it's just like, everyone's just like, it's whatever.
How do you like the weather out there compared to here?
It's actually pretty good.
I've heard it's really sunny out there, surprisingly.
It's supposed to get really hot.
Okay.
But surprisingly, it's been somewhat temperate, like, lately, like, more on the chilly side, but I think that's also been the same thing out here. Like, everyone keeps saying it's supposed to be like
cold,
cool. Yeah.
It's been nice, actually. A little bit of a treat.
Yeah, and I think that's just been kind of like more of a everywhere thing. Like, I mean, you remember like when Texas just got like snowed in and everything like that. So I feel like this is just going to be maybe a cold year.
That's a good point.
But like out there, like, because there's less humidity, like when it gets dark out, it gets chilly faster, which is cool, because it's like, you know, you're not like, you know, especially if you want to go out and camp or something like that, you don't have to worry about getting like hot or getting sticky or something like that when you wake up. Or if you need to go into some shade, you know, it's actually going to be cool in the shade, because it's all like what they call it, a dry heat.
Yeah.
You know, so like you're going to actually cool down in some spots unless you're like directly out in the sun. But I mean, so far the weather's been pretty good. Again, like my favorite thing is the fact that, one, like, you know, as far as weather goes, like, you drive whatever direction and you can experience whatever kind of weather you want.
That's what everybody seems to brag about out there. It's like, you need the mountains, you can get the mountains. You want the water, you can get the desert, you can get everything. It's like, oh man, can't get any of that here. Well, you can, but not.
You have to drive a little bit more.
Yeah. What are some things? Well, I want to talk about cameras for a second, but I also wanted to ask you, what are some things when you go back that are like, I know you said you want to go to Moab, right? Are there any other places that you want to go that you haven't gone yet?
Tons. Like, I mean, again, big thing, and this is something like I talk to my dad about a lot, and why like him and my mom were like, big reason I went out Junction was because my parents were talking about like that's where they wanted to go, or at least like Fruta is what they were looking
to
at.
retire. Or?
Yeah, after they retire, because
Nice.
like was it next month, and I might try to meet them out there. They're trying to go to Tetons.
Are they from here though? Originally,
my
or they just been
mom
here for...
is actually from Arizona. My dad's from Rhode Island. So a lot of my family's also in Texas.
Okay, so you'd be closer to them, or they would be closer to them, right?
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, something like that. But like a lot of my family ended up moving towards the East Coast, like when I was young. So like a lot of them are still kind of up, especially my dad's side of the family. They're still up in Rhode Island. But like my mom and dad have been making like multiple trips out west over the last few years. Like they would just take like 2-week vacations out there.
Yeah.
So like I know next year they're talking about trying to go to Moab. So they'll probably be around Junction and stuff too. Like my dad pretty much said like, hey, like, like big, thing that kind of helped me, other than the fact that there was like a VA hospital out there that was literally like 7 minutes. That's the other thing too. Yeah. The VA hospital is like literally right there. So I'm not driving an hour to DC. It's like 7 minutes from my work. So like it's not far to get to. And of course everything's over the phone now. So I don't even have to drive there most of the time. And they're a lot faster with things. Like I don't blame the VA in DC just because they get...
Is it more crowded?
It is way more crowded. Way more crowded.
Where you're at, you're like walking, there's no waiting room, no nothing.
Yeah, there's like, there's vets out there, but there's like not a lot, but it's just nice having that easy access, and they are way quicker right now with like getting back to me, almost too quick to the point like they're calling me at work and I'm like, I can't talk right now. Like, it's like I'm doing something, let me call you back. And then they finally get a hold of me. Like, they called me while I was like, I had a couple appointments, and then I had someone else call me to set up an appointment as I was driving. And I'm like, yeah, nope, I'm on 70 right now, heading east, but yeah, what's up?
Dude, that's great.
So that, that was one reason. But then of course my dad was like, we want to go out to Fruta because they like all the national parks that are right there. So like Yellowstone, Grand Tetons, they've been to Zion and all that stuff. So they've been telling me like all these little like, oh, if you're going to Zion, like take, I think they said it was like 81, or maybe it's not 81. It's some different route that's not the usual highway route that it goes down. I have to look it up on Google Maps to tell you. But yeah, so like I was like, okay, well, makes sense. Yeah. Access to everything. So my parents are talking about going out there. So that's what, it made sense to go out there.
Sure. That's awesome, dude.
Especially if I want to go out, and the stuff I want to do is take cool adventure photos and go explore and experience.
You already did the first step. You moved.
Yep.
And here.
Huge jump.
I'm already out of my beer.
Hang on, we'll got to open another one. We still got
more to drink. Which one do you think we should go for next?
Good question. I've had these recently. The red ales are good.
Okay.
Dirty Hippies. We'll go for Dirty Hippie.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for Dirty Hippie because it's a little less alcohol. 7.5 on top of that. I still got to take care of the kids later.
Yeah.
So
and this is 5.3. So we're working up to the harder stuff.
Oh yeah. Boom. Mm-hmm. But all right. Well, the next question would be gear, because we've talked about e-bikes. Mm-hmm. We're only at 38 minutes, so we still got time to roll.
Yeah.
Dude,
pound them down.
One, I filmed a wedding recently with Jesse, so I got to see, and I didn't really get to use the S5, the Panasonic S5 or whatnot, but I got to hold it and see the footage of it, and that thing's a beast. So I wouldn't buy it. I busted his balls. He bought 2 of them, and he bought the native glass. And I guess my biggest downfall, or like why I would bust its chops, is just how heavy it is. It just reminds me of the Canon 5D Mark III, which is fine and great camera, but I guess that's what you get with full frame. Even though the Sony A7S II that I shot and A7 III seems so much lighter. But I thought I'd at least bring that up to you because I filmed with that, and then Panasonic is going to be releasing the
Gh5 Mark II.
Mark II, which I just kind of realized. I think I'm not going to be able to talk about the Gh5 anymore. My channel's dead. I'm going to have to either buy the Mark II or I'm going to have to...
I mean, I feel like there's there's been a few channels I watch like that still use the 80D. Like one of the ones I think they used it for a long time was Corridor Crew. Like their VFX arts and stuff, and they use that a lot. Like I think they switched to Sony's, or they started using Sony's too, because they also use Sony's. They use Reds, but I feel like I'm wondering, like, because I've noticed a lot where it's like I think they were using the 80D. So it's like, it's still, you know, a good camera. It still works. It still does a job.
Yep.
And it's like, again, it comes back to that, you know, it's like you can have all these nice things, but do you really need them?
Oh my gosh, dude. The discussions on my channel right now in regards to the Gh5 Mark II and everybody like weighing in, it's just so funny. It is so funny. Yeah, I mean, with cameras, it's interesting that they would, one, release this kind of camera, and then I love your motto in regards to, like, there's absolutely no reason to, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yep.
And all these cameras look so good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to me, I just feel bad that, like, in a weird way, if I didn't have a GH5 or I didn't have a nice camera, or like you've got 2 nice cameras, I would feel this urgency to need to buy all these cameras, when in reality, it's like, no, go buy like 2 years or 3 years ago model and let it be. Can you bring me a brownie snack bar and water? I'm trapped. That's from my wife. Oh, God. Okay.
Take a break.
This might be a first, but yes. I will be right back.
All right.
No, just keep it rolling. I got plenty of, that's funny. All right, she said a brownie snack.
She's trapped.
Well, she's holding my 5-month-old.
Ah.
I'll be right back, dude.
This is going in the edit.
All right, I'm back.
Okay.
I have proof. Chocolate brownie Z-bar. Maybe one day they'll sponsor me. That'd save me and my wife a ton of money. Nice. Between my wife and my son. Well, actually, I can't believe my wife's eating that. Normally, my son eats these, but I guess she got the itch for one. All right, so yeah, talking about cameras.
Yep.
My GH5, still love it. Still probably gonna buy another one.
Yeah.
Why
and
not?
that was the other thing I was gonna get to, is the fact that it's like, I don't think your channel's dead, because then again, majority of what I think comes down to like how to use gear really doesn't come down to like the specific camera itself. Yes, each camera has its own like unique little features and menus and things like that, but generally, like across the board, like what you can do with one camera usually can be applied elsewhere, which is really kind of a philosophy like I've really tried to kind of embrace, especially when I talk about stuff. It's like, you know what, like this is like these ideas and philosophies and stuff is not just applicable to, say, like photography. It could also be applicable to, you know, other aspects of your life, or just like what works with one piece of gear is more than likely going to work with other piece of gear. So when you're talking settings, it's like, that's one of the things, like when everyone talks about, you know, like I think you brought it up the last time. It was like, well, what settings did you use to kind of get this image or that? Or what settings would you recommend? It's like, well, it really depends a lot on the different things you're using. What camera do you have? What lens are you using? You know, what
are
focal
you
length?
shooting?
Yeah. How far away are you from it? You know, what's the time of day? So there's like a lot of other factors that go in there that, again, is going to apply across the board as more technique than it is technology.
Totally. And then I think the ultimate thing, and you talk about this all the time, would be the story. I mean, if there is no story there, or there's no kind of formula of why you're doing what you're doing, then you're probably going to lose people in general anyways. Yeah. But to go back to the whole dying channel, I joke about the GH5, but you are correct. I think the one thing that's nice is I can always talk about the GH5, and I actually think people still will buy that camera because it is so... For the price,
it's probably going to be available new for a long time too, and then there's always going to be people who are going to buy it used.
Exactly.
So someone's still going to want to know how to do certain things,
and then on top of that, I think the one thing that's probably the channel will do more and more of is just more of teaching how to do X, Y, and Z, not so much gear focused. You know, because if anything, I mean, like for right now, we're not filming with all GH5s. We got a GH5, a GH4, and then the Hero. Yep. You know, so it's like. Gotta just do what you can with what you got. But hell, I was trying to think if there was anything else I was going to ask you while you were here, other than gear is so tricky to talk about right now because I'm not in a position to buy any, so I don't necessarily like talking about it. My wife's like put me in the like. Well, I actually shouldn't blame that on my wife. It's my own doing, but like I've kind of just made a rule that this year I should just chill out. You know, and if anything, because I'm not working for you know who, and I'm just shooting on these, I've kind of positioned myself where I'm like, I need to master these because I still haven't. Every time I use this damn thing, I'm like, oh
You've used the Sony's probably a lot more.
I've used the Sony's way more than I have. I mean, now I think I'm starting to get comfortable with the Gh5 again, but I haven't even used the Cinema 4K whatever that spits out of this that you can. Or like some other dude was talking about, you can do some 6K out of it, but to be honest with you, I ain't got time for that, to figure that out. It's all about like manipulating it and telling it to shoot in different frame rate and something like that. You can actually get 6K out of it.
Really?
You can.
That's interesting.
I don't know exactly how, and if somebody is stuck around for the 47 minutes and you know how to, you tell me how. I've seen it happen.
And if anyone knows anything about Magic Lantern, please get something done for the AED, because that's like been the one camera I think.
Do you not have it?
They don't make it for AED, or at least like because it's a community like driven software. So it's like a lot of the different cameras that have had it, like the 5D Mark II I think had it, the 7D had it, the 6D.
You get on the Rebels.
Yeah, the Rebels have it, but it's like everyone keeps asking. It's like you have the AED, which is like. For a while, like I feel like everyone was like, "Oh, it's like this camera in like no man's land," because you had like the 6D, which was this full frame thing, and then you had the 7D, which didn't have a flip out screen, but still had a lot of the same features. So it's like, or the 7D Mark II. So they were like, "Oh, well, the AED is kind of like in this no man's land," but yet I keep seeing like a lot of people use it, either the 7D or the 80D. And then they just came out with the 90. I think that's a big reason why you haven't seen a lot of it, is because a lot of these newer cameras are finally coming out with like features that people have been asking for. But it's like, it'd be nice to have Magic Lantern on the AED, because then it's like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you could get like 6K RAW out of that if you wanted to. Yeah, like I think even on the 60D, they had like the ability to export RAW, and then of course if you can get clean HDMI out,
change everything.
Yeah, then you can record to an external and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just like no one's really put in the time to try to like port it over to make it to make Magic Lantern work with the AED. Otherwise, I'd probably use it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just, how old is that camera now?
It's 2016, I think it came out. Ooh. So it's a little bit older, but
yeah. Well, I mean, hey, Gh5 was 2017, I think.
Yeah.
So right there with it.
I mean, at this point in time, like when it comes to cameras, like everything is like, yeah, they're coming out. Like a lot of the features and stuff they're coming out with are like features that already existed, and it's just like they were probably just like held because. Yeah. Oh, we need to have a camera model that doesn't do this stuff so we can sell a camera model that does.
I feel like that's what Sony has to probably deal with. If I were going to like pivot, say one company that just bombards too much, it's got to be Sony.
I kind of appreciate what they do more because I understand the business aspect.
Do you mean like targeting the different markets of like YouTubers
whereas like
versus
Canon,
video?
Like with Canon was like, oh, you had your consumer line, then you had your prosumer line cameras, and then you had your professional line of cameras. And what that did is like it really kind of like they were very focused kind of cameras into like different demographics
just
of
video
like groups,
or just photo or something,
based on what kind of features and capabilities it had. And the thing with is when you do that, because that's the thing that Canon and Nikon struggle with when like Sony and Panasonic kind of came into the game, right?
And now
because what Sony and Panasonic did was, they still had cameras like that, but all the cameras they had were pretty much feature rich, and all the stuff that people wanted as basic features were available. And the thing that was usually different between them was, I think, more hardware than features. So like maybe like a better sensor or something like that in one camera versus another, or something that had a higher resolution versus another. But it's like everyone's like, oh, well, we want 4K video. So they're like, okay, well, let's just put that in all our cameras. And it does kind of hurt them in the fact that it's like, when they kind of come out with another camera that is better than, say, another camera, then they're like, oh, well, like, was it Canon, Nikon? Like, that's one thing they have to struggle with, was like, if you came out with a camera that's like people kept asking for, but it's cheaper than the cameras you sold before, then everyone who bought those cameras are going to be like pissed off because it's like, oh, I just spent like $5,000 for this camera that does like 4K and has like full frame, and you just released one for like $2,000, and it's like, what the hell? And then, but it's like, so that does kind of like is something that Canon and Nikon struggle with, I think, for a little while as far as marketing goes. But Sony's like, it does hurt and help Sony because it's like they can't take advantage of that, again, market where it's like they can upsell cameras based on features as much. But it does kind of help drive the innovation more.
I can see what you're saying. I mean, their autofocus alone and their low light is probably sells most people.
The low light alone, I think, is a huge one. That's why, like, I've kind of considered Sony.
Oh, yeah.
I like shooting Canon. Like, I mean, I've told you, like, for me, like, I still think EF glass is, like, hands down the best thing to invest in, because it's so, like, especially if you want to get into more like cinema style stuff, right? Like the two lens mounts that are probably most ubiquitous is EF and PL. You know,
PL being the most cinema probably friendly.
Yeah, but everything else is like, oh, well, there's an EF mount or something like that. If you want to use it with, you can use it with pretty much any Canon camera. You can now use it with the Blackmagic 6K and 6K Pro.
Yep.
You can pretty much use it with just about any mirrorless camera. You know, you get a Metabones adapter. It may not always work the way you hoped it would, because especially like with things like autofocus and stuff like that, like.
But as far as look, it looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
no, I agree with you. I mean, Sony's done pretty well. Canon, I don't look. I mean, bottom line, all these cameras are pretty darn good. I if I had to get in a drop down debate, I would just look at somebody and be like, you just do what you think works best for you. Because we've agreed, we've worked with the Sonys, we've worked with the Canons, and we've worked with Panasonic for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have certain things they do.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I would say Sony probably does the best overall. I had a buddy recently who worked for the RNC, and they bought the FX9.
And I think I saw him on the channel.
Yeah, and he basically summed it up. He goes, look, dude, bottom line, Canon and Sony make cameras that you can walk into any situation and you don't have to worry about them failing or anything like that. And he goes, that's why we buy them.
Yep.
Because I know you're interested in the Blackmagic and the Reds and the Z cams and all that, but just we have the budget, so we buy what's most reliable. I'm like, damn. That's
honestly, like, if it came down to it, like, I was looking, I was like, okay, well, if I bought a cinema camera, what would I get? Blackmagic's definitely, I think, getting there as far as reliability goes. Reds are very temperamental from what I've seen everyone say. It's like they're great cameras, but it's like they're great when they work.
I couldn't even imagine if I had to like
I hear
fingers crossed that worked tomorrow for my big gig. I
hear everyone talk about it's like anytime you go anywhere with a Red camera, it's like you have to have like 5 Red cameras, like the exact same camera and setup. That way, if one fails, you can grab another. But like if I had to pick a cinema camera, it'd probably be like either Blackmagic or it would be just because like I use Resolve too, so like the raw like would easily, the codec and everything would work seamlessly. But then there would also be like Ari, like probably like one of the Alexas, because those, like everyone says, like one, like the color and stuff is still great.
Yeah.
The image is still great, like dynamic range is great, but it's reliable. It works when you need it to. Yeah. And it very rarely fails. And that's kind of like, you know, especially if you have a system that works and it doesn't bug out on you. Like my Canons work great because, granted, like I've found workarounds to get around things like C-Log. I found a preset that I can just load on there that does practically the same thing, so I can still get log out of the camera. And I think the guy just released like a new log pack, so I might have to shoot him an email and be like, what's the difference between this one and the last one I bought, so I'm not like wasting my money on something entirely new, because the one I have does a pretty good job. Like it was like, because there was for the Canons you could get like I forget what they call it. It was like the Cine something, and it was like this preset you load into it and it gave you closer to like log footage. But this guy like literally went in there, looked at like C-Logs 3 and like designed a picture profile that basically gave you the C-Log capability. Like I don't know, it's hard to know how exactly like what the benefits are between that and regular C-Log, but it was basically designed to where it could still work with a lot of the LUTs and things like that. So when you dropped it on there, it should still technically do mostly the same stuff.
Nice.
So it was actually really, really cool to have, because then it's like, okay, cool, now I have that. And of course I almost never use it like for my regular stuff. Like I've used it on like when I've done like more production stuff, like when I did like the commercial work for my buddy, like back in October, I used it for that because it was like I could really do more of the color grading.
Yeah.
But it's like now I just do everything like in that whole neutral setting because it's just like add a little contrast, add a little saturation, call
Boom,
it
you're
good.
done.
You know, like I'm going more towards when I get around to editing this stuff, I want it to be relatively as easy as possible so I don't have to spend as much time working on it. And then when I want to work on something that's actually more like, you know, either I'm getting paid to do it or it's more artistic, then I'll sit there and be like, okay, let me use the stuff that gives me more flexibility and more room to play with it and whatnot. But yeah, it's like it works. That's the main thing.
Into that.
It works.
Cheers to that. That's a great way to finish. If it works, stick with it.